Well, it is 1 minute past the hour, and I am so excited that folks are joining us today for the first Passive House Accelerator Live of the season, of the 24-25 season. And this is earlier than we normally start, actually, because it's Labor Day week. But we wanted to kick this off with a presentation about what's coming up this fall. We have a couple of really important special guests who are going to share some of what's happening in their world and our world in a moment. But thank you for being here. And I'll hand it off here to Michael Ingui, the founder of Passive House Accelerator, to say a couple words. We'll hear from Jose and Sarah, who are the hosts of Passive House Accelerator Live 101, which is typically what we do on the first Wednesday of the month. So they have graciously agreed to join us here and help moderate the group sessions later in the program. But with that, Michael.
Thanks, Zach. And what's going on, folks? How are you? One of the things that I would love to know, you could just put it in chat if you want, is how many people are here and relatively new to the accelerator versus how many people have been kind of following along and coming to our events, either whether you're coming weekly or when you can. This has been a really fun summer where we got to plan a lot, and Zach's going to talk about that, where we've got a really cool year set up for 24 and 25, which will be a lot of fun. But just thinking about kind of where we've been and where we're going, it's been about 5 years, and it's been a crazy journey. Started right before COVID, and then getting through COVID, and Sean and Monty bringing us the lives, and just bringing those along. Reimagine Buildings 24 really changing a lot for us last year, where we partnered with a whole bunch of groups, which we're going to do again this year, which was A, fun, and B, rewarding. And then the team at the Accelerator really kind of kicking butt from the different hosts who are bringing so much to the table in terms of ideas and thoughts about what we could be doing next to everyone who works with the accelerator, from the writers and video editors and everybody. So it's been a lot of fun. What we're going to do today is Zach's going to talk a little bit about what we have planned, but we also really do want to know from you. It's like a working session. What do you want? So at some point we'll do breakout rooms where you get to say, this is what my issue is, this is what my problems are, this is what I would love to see, this is what I'm super curious about. Feel free to tell us what we're doing wrong too. And but that's going to be a lot of fun. So it'll be a good session. But what it will also do is ensure that what we're doing this year is really what you want. It's one thing to guess, one thing to figure out what you want, and another thing to really know. So be super vocal, as I know everybody will be. And let's get going. It's going to be a fun year.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So Sarah Nuama, co-host of Passive House Accelerator Live 101, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. That's me. It's nice to see everyone. I am hoping that you guys had a pretty good, summer. We haven't seen your beautiful faces in so long.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And Jose Sosa, the other co-host.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, man, I'm just going to echo Sarah, Michael, Zach. It's great to see everyone. And I'm looking forward for these new sessions, and I'm looking forward to hear from all of you on what can the accelerator do to, bring more and better information.
Awesome. Thanks, Jose. So I would like to introduce Ben Sox Hamilton of Nessie to come on screen and to share the really exciting programming that Nessie has planned for all of us this fall. So Ben, please take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Zach. Thanks for having me here. Nessie is the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a membership and community association for anyone working in green building, high performance building, architects, designers, builders, manufacturers, consultants, policy, academics, finance, whatever, as long as your work touches sustainability in the built environment. And we have our big Building Energy NYC conference coming up in October, on October 24th in New York City. Our theme this year is Beyond Compliance. Lots of folks in the New York market have been very focused on Local Law 97 going into effect, and we want to talk about that, but also talk about what's next. What is next in time now that that's happened, but also what's next in scope. Where do we go from here? Local Law 97 compliance is not the end. We have a really exciting keynote from folks who are involved with the National Climate Investment Fund, talking about federal funding opportunities for projects, particularly funding opportunities that are not dependent on the current, let's say, political instability, or we don't know where the country is going politically after this fall, but these funding opportunities are not going anywhere. Some other session highlights. I'm excited about all of our sessions, but some that I'll just point out. Some additional ones about funding opportunities through the IRA. There's one about using the tenant leasing process to find opportunities for decarbonization. There's one about counting the social cost of carbon when evaluating the cost effectiveness of retrofit projects. And then some straight up technical sessions as well. We've got one on VRF performance analysis. And for this audience, not surprising, lots of content around passive house construction, lots of the projects that will be referenced in the sessions are passive house, and we'll actually have a session on the Revive standard from Al Mitchell at FIAS. We also have a trade show as part of the conference. For those of you who haven't been to our events, we'll have 20 exhibitors, manufacturers, suppliers, utilities, finance specialists, as well as all of our conference sessions. And just a final plug that our show was sold out last year. So if you're thinking about coming, don't delay. We are currently offering early bird passes at a discounted rate, but we only have a limited number of those available. So you can head over to nessie.org and register. We'd love to see you there on October 24th.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the fine work that all of you are doing at Nessie. It's just so important to all of us in the community. So great job. All right. So Jenny Eber from FIAS. Thank you, Jenny, for being here. Please, there's some big stuff in store at FIAS. So please share.
There is some big stuff in store. Thank you for having me. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. Hi, everyone. So normally I'd come on here or beg Zach for time to come on to talk about FIASCon, but in 2025, there is no FIASCon. Instead, we have two really great new opportunities. We will be part of Greenbuild in Philadelphia, November 12th through 15th. It's a summit, so you'll hear from this great collection of FIAS practitioners explaining why and how and what they do for FIAS and why they've chosen that path for their buildings and even their business. And then we have a whole track during the Greenbuild conference, one whole room the entire time to come and hear from people who are talking about their projects, lessons learned, reasons they've made certain decisions, some details, some overviews. But this is really great for people who maybe haven't heard about passive building or FIAS, or really starting to think about beyond compliance or how to create these really resilient, sustainable buildings. And we're really excited to be there. So it's a little more intro track, but in October 21st through 23rd, we will be in Providence, Rhode Island for the first ever FIAS Pro Forum, which is a workshop-based 3-day event where we go and people who are certified, who've started projects or at least trained, understand the principles of passive building. So if you just got certified or you've been building these buildings for 10 years, we have something for you. We have a full day workshop with the FIAS staff on the Revive program, walking you through the certification. We have a full day of multifamily electrification based on systems. So how do you get those hot water systems in the big multifamily buildings and some of the solutions we're working on? Details, really anything from anyone, a whole day on air sealing. One thing we're really excited to, we're in Providence, Rhode Island, which is pretty close to Massachusetts, who just has a really cool stretch code that has made Passive House part of code compliance that's been adopted. So we have a session as FIAS as code compliance, which is not something I think we thought we'd be able to say in 2024. So that's really exciting. Join us. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and I'm now going to pitch it to Michael Franco to talk about not exhibitors, but a really cool thing we're doing at the Pro Forum.
Yes, hello. I'm Michael, also with FIAS. I know there's so many Michaels here, but I'm now another one. So yeah, like Jenny said, this year we're really excited to have a bit of a change up with how we're handling sort of that industry relations angle for our conference. Since we're not doing FIASCon in 2024, we're doing the Pro Forum and we're doing that partnership with Greenbuild. This year, we're just having event sponsors for the Pro Forum and a sponsor lounge. So we're still going to have tons of face-to-face networking. It's going to be similar to most of the benefits that people look for in the exhibit hall, just without the tables and without the hauling of the stuff. So it'll be kind of a leaner, meaner, still tons of time for networking and asking questions. You'll have direct access to a lot of knowledgeable reps and a lot of FIA staff. Since we're all going to be wandering around there, and with a smaller event and less to manage, there will be more time for you to bug us with stuff, and we are happy to do it. But really, we are happy to field all of your questions, as I'm sure all the reps will be too. We have a good lineup, a good mix of sort of equipment and component manufacturers and some service providers, architecture firms, energy modeling consultants, things like that. So we hope that you'll join us down in, well, I guess it's up for me. If you're coming from the further in, north, that you'll join us down in Providence, Rhode Island for the FIAS Pro Forum, October 21st through the 23rd.
Fantastic, Michael and Jenny. Such exciting work that FIAS is doing. And I think all of us are really looking forward to what's happening in Providence and in Philly. So thanks so much. And thanks for joining us today. So this is Passive House Accelerator Live, right? This is where we explore how to make buildings that address climate change and also make us more resilient to its impacts. This Passive House Accelerator Live is unique in that it is a kickoff event, and we're going to be sharing what's coming up this fall, as well as getting your input for what you need from us and what kind of programming you would like us to share. So I'm gonna share a quick presentation. I think, Michael, you're gonna say a couple words first, and then we'll get moving.
Great. So what Zach's about to show is what we're jumping off on and what we're planning to do coming up in 24 into 25. It's a combination of what we've learned. It's a combination of how strong the community has become, especially being we're all from different backgrounds. A lot of us are in different groups. And one of the things that we really have enjoyed is not just the presentations, but the chats. It's the while someone's talking, but you could also do it this way. It's the questions. It's everything that comes up afterwards, and how much everybody's so open to sharing everything and learning. So what we're hoping to do is really take advantage of that and really just use it as a jumping off point to really supercharge it for everybody, including us in 24 and 25. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So anyway, with Zach, take it away.
All right, thank you, Michael. Yeah, so we are super excited to get your ideas and feedback. And before getting there and sharing what we have coming up this fall, I wanted to just share a couple of thoughts about the why about what we're doing at the accelerator. And that starts also with a little bit of a stock taking about where we're at with buildings and climate change, because this project of addressing the climate crisis and thinking about how and figuring out how to turn buildings, transform them from a climate problem to a climate solution can feel like this long hike and climb toward a mountain, right? This is Mount Rainier, close to where I live. Beautiful, beautiful place. My family was very close to Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens last week. It was beautiful. But as you go on one of these hikes or climbs to a mountain, you can be walking for hours and hours and hours, days even, and it feels like that mountain is not getting any closer to you. That goal is elusive, and it's difficult sometimes to feel like to have kind of the spirit to keep on trudging along, especially if you have kids in tow, as you're doing that, because you don't see progress. But if you stop after those hours or days on a ridgetop on the shoulder of that mountain and look back and look down, you recognize the progress that you've made and the elevation that you've gained, and that can be really kind of sometimes surprising and astounding, even though there is this challenge ahead. And so Ed Mazaria of Architecture 2030 kind of took the moment last year to take a look at what progress have we been making with buildings and emissions in this great piece at Architecture 2030. And there has been progress, right? If we're on this ridgetop looking down, we can see that in commercial construction between 2005 and 2022, the US building emissions intensity went down by 43.7% in commercial and 39.8% in residential. So that's measured in pounds of CO2 per square foot emitted. During that same period, the area of floor area of our building sector has increased really significantly by 22.5%. Even with that increase, we have seen a decrease of CO2 emissions by 28.4% from our building sector. Now, we have a long ways to go. That mountain is still ahead, but that's the progress that's being made. Meanwhile, there's just some incredible progress that's going on in the clean energy transition, where we're seeing exponential growth, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. That is really defying the expectations of experts, right? It's going quicker than was expected. So, given those elements of progress, this is where we're at, and there's a lot here. I'm gonna unpack two of these columns for you. So this comes from the Climate Action Tracker. The Climate Action Tracker is a great source of information about kind of where we're at in terms of progress on climate action and what that means for the best guess for warming by the year 2100. And of course, there are all sorts of unknowns in this world. So yeah, bear that in mind. There are big error bars. But what this shows, and they've been doing this assessment for many years, including 2015 and before the Paris Accord. What we're looking at on the left in the blue is essentially what is business as usual. If we were to do so, if we look at the current policies in place and just following those current policies around the world, what would that mean in terms of warming by 2100? Back in 2015, that meant warming would bring us to about 3.6 degrees Celsius of warming. Fast forward to 2023, and because those policies have significantly improved, and we have this energy transition that's going quicker than expected, and we're making progress in other areas like buildings, we're looking at a projection of warming at 2.7 degrees Celsius. So that's still way beyond what we want to see. That mountain is still ahead, but we can, again, with this metaphor, not to belabor it, but look down in the valley, we've made some significant progress, 9 degrees Celsius progress according to Climate Action Tracker. So that's the kind of business as usual. The other piece is what is possible, the optimistic scenario. If all of the targets that have been voiced by government were hit, what would that mean? In 2015, that was 2.7 degrees Celsius, which is now business as usual, right? In 2023, that had improved to below 2 degrees Celsius. So that's the mountain that we need to climb. And it's one that will have twists and turns and crevasses that we don't expect. And who knows, for example, what's going to happen the next couple of years, or a couple of months rather, whatever it is, 9 weeks, 8 weeks, it's very short. But we're at this ridge, we've made progress. How do we move forward? The reason that we're on this ridge, of course, and not wallowing in one of those valleys below, is for curves like this. And this is going to start getting to learning and community and buildings. But this shows exponential growth in solar, and the actual annual growth is that dark black line, and then these flat lines are the forecast by the world's foremost energy prognosticators, the International Energy Agency. So to unpack this, in 2010, for example, we deployed almost 20 gigawatts of solar panels around the world. The IEA took a look at that and said, wow, that's great progress from last year, but we expect that will continue. Next year it'll be 19, maybe the year after it'll be 18. Basically, it'll be around 20 for the next several decades. Well, of course, what happened is that we jumped in 2011 to over 30 gigawatts of deployment. And so IEA said, oh, well, that's great progress, but it's going to be flat from now on. And that has continued year after year after year. So when I say that solar deployment and the energy transition is defying expectations of the experts, this is what I mean. And if you look at what has happened last couple of years, it continues to just like completely skyrocket. Here's another way of looking at this data. Here's 2021 and 2023, and here is 2024 forecast. So why? Why is this happening? And it's something that is just so common and commonplace, and I've talked about it before. It is learning by doing. And it seems so commonplace as to be boring or and maybe unimportant, but it is actually incredibly important. It's why we're still in this fight. It's also known as Wright's Law. And so what Wright's Law says for solar energy is depicted here in this graph. So in 2010, we had solar was $378 per megawatt hour. In just 9 years, that declined to $68 per megawatt hour. And so what's at play here is that each time we double the amount of solar capacity installed around the world, the price of that solar energy declines by a certain percentage. That's what Wright's Law is about. Every time you double deployment of a technology, the price of it goes down by a certain percentage. For solar energy, that percentage is 36%. And the reason it's doing that is all of the little micro innovations and learning that happens within the community of people who are creating solar energy. So that's, from R&D to deployment, to supply chain, to marketing, all of it. All these little innovations add up to this learning rate in solar energy. Here is that number for onshore wind, 23%. Offshore wind is a learning rate of 10%. Nuclear energy is actually getting more expensive over time, calling into question whether new nuclear is really a reasonable and viable option for climate action. And coal is not a technology, it's a fuel. Fossil fuel is energy as fuel, not energy as technology, and we're not seeing learning rates there. Well, a similar thing is going on with buildings. And buildings, of course, are different from solar energy, for example, because with solar and wind, you're replicating the same unit over and over and over and over. And so you can drive cost closer and closer to zero. But the same basic principle of learning by doing does apply to buildings. And our project is different in that we are working to bring passive house or zero carbon building closer and closer to cost parity with conventional construction. And this data from Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, including over a couple 100 data points, compares the cost of a bunch of construction proposals for conventional construction and passive house. This is in competition with low-income housing tax credits. And what they found is that, of course, construction cost is going up during these 3 years, but the incremental cost of doing passive house, the upfront cost of doing passive house compared to conventional construction, starts at year 1 at a 5.8% premium, year 2, 1.6% premium, and by year 3, a 3.3% savings. Now, I'm not arguing that passive house is actually cheaper than conventional construction typically, but this does show that trend of a bunch of project teams figuring out how to dial in these designs, dial in more efficient delivery so that the cost of these projects can go down. And probably most of the people on this call know anecdotally of, you know, when your project team does the first passive house project, it's more expensive. You make mistakes. You do things that are less efficient than you could do them. You learn from all that, and you bring that to the second project, and that gets more efficient and more cost effective. And we need to then figure out how to share those learnings with one another, which is what the NESI conference is about. It's what the FIAS events are about, and it's what all of the work that we're doing at Passive House Accelerator is about as well. And all of this is starting to work. So partly because we're getting better at doing these passive buildings and passive house buildings, partly because we have now proof of concept, and we have code advancements that are happening, but you can see that there's a doubling every couple of years now of the square footage of passive buildings, certified passive buildings, and we can see similar growth with PHI certified passive houses. So there are a couple of paradigm shifts that need to happen for us to climb to the summit. With going back to that metaphor, one of them is this aha moment of building science. And the late Sam Hagerman always used to talk about building science and passive building as the unified field theory of better building. That for him, it brought together kind of decades of experience and these kind of disparate insights and intuitions into this unified field theory of doing better buildings. And really, I would argue also maybe thinking about buildings as technology more than we had before. It also means a shift away from the doomerism of folks like Jonathan Franzen, the celebrated novelist, talking about the end times for civilization, long past the point of averting climate catastrophe, to a sense of agency. So this is Paul Romer, the Nobel laureate in economics from a couple of years ago. He won that Nobel thanks to his work on endogenous growth theory, which is all about the learning rates that I mentioned. And he makes the distinction between complacent optimism and conditional optimism. So complacent optimism is the feeling of a child waiting for presents, while conditional optimism is the feeling of a child who's thinking about building a tree house. If I get some wood and nails and persuade some other kids to help do the work, we can end up with something really cool. So he's getting at both innovation here as well as community. And of course, we have Christina Figueres, the UN climate chief during the Paris Climate Accords, encouraging us to embrace both outrage and optimism in our work. The complexity of the climate crisis and its solutions mean we need to get used to holding complex emotional reactions and to pursuing complex solutions. The path ahead will be full of outrage and optimism. We can use both of these to push for the policies we know we need. And this brings us to this really critically important piece of the effort, and that is community. And there are two aspects of community that are, I think, really important for us in this moment. One is that in community, we can work together to truly embrace both the outrage, which honestly is easier to embrace, I think, as well as the optimism, and find that community to work toward that conditional optimism of constructing the tree house that Paul Romer talks about. But it's also in community that we can drive the innovation and the learning that will allow us to increase the learning rates that are going on in our community in buildings, and to share lessons learned and pitfalls to avoid. What we are realizing more and more is how critically important community is. And as I mentioned, Building Energy NYC, the FIAS Pro Forum, Green Build plus FIAS, these are all examples of this community and innovation coming together that are so important. And it's what's driving our programming at Passive House Accelerator. So we're really excited about this new cadence of Passive House Accelerator live episodes. Of course, we do Passive House Accelerator live at noon every Wednesday. The first week of every month, we will be doing a 101 episode with hosts Sarah Nwama and Jose Sosa. The second, we will do Project of the Month. So this is an outgrowth of Project Showcase, and the host of Project of the Month is Beverly Craig. The third week, we'll do Construction Tech, and the hosts of that are Kevin Brennan and a new co-host, Ilka Cassidy. Ilka, I think you're on the call. Yeah, I hear Shannon. I see Shannon celebrating. It's great to have Ilka join the team, and with Shannon Pendleton, Sean St. Amour, and Mark Willey. And then we're going to be doing something called Next Up with Zoe Kaufman and Carmel Pratt on the fourth Wednesday of every month, looking at new technologies, new approaches to building decarbonization. So next week, we will do the first project of the month with Juhi Lee Hartford and Josh Edmond. This is the Bank Lofts project in New York. It's the transformation of an old bank building into affordable passive house housing. Very cool project. So that's Passive House. That's a glimpse of Passive House Accelerator Live and the cadence that we'll be doing. And then we are excited to be doing continuing a series of Reimagine Buildings conferences. So many of you probably caught the Reimagine Buildings 24 around the world 24-hour virtual conference that we did in, was it March? And then followed a couple months later by Reimagine Buildings Prefab, which was a 4-hour event. So this fall, we're going to have 2 Reimagine Buildings half-day conferences. The first one will be Decarb 101. So this will be an introduction to operational carbon, embodied carbon, building electrification, clean energy. We'll be looking at existing buildings and affordable housing and equitable access, examining how to land that first project or fund that first project, and how to communicate about the benefits of these buildings to the benefits to people that these buildings bring. So this is designed for you, for the experienced practitioner, but most importantly, also for new practitioners, because we know how important it is to provide resources to people who are new to this world of building decarbonization and help them on that path and to grow our community of practice. And then on December 6th, we have Reimagine Buildings Carbon Storage that we're presenting in collaboration with Chris Magwood of RMI. And super excited about this program. Chris and I has been the driver behind the design of this program. This is an opportunity to really dive deeper into embodied carbon and even carbon sequestration. So this will be covering a 101 on why biomaterials are important, real world examples of products across a few really important categories, building case studies both for single family and multifamily. And I didn't mention the roundtables and booths, but both of these will have roundtable conversations at the end and booths by manufacturers. So both of these are really exciting for us, and we hope that you'll join us at them. And finally, I just want to tease what is incredibly exciting for me and for Michael and for the team. We've been working now all of summer and actually a few months now on the Reimagine Buildings Collective, which is a membership community that will be launching on October 1st. And so the purpose of this community is to bring together building professionals who want to step up and tackle climate change so that we can create the healthiest buildings with the smallest carbon footprint, deliver them cost effectively and as headache-free as possible, sell their benefits so they get built, and make a good living while doing it. So this is providing some structure to this community of practice that all of us are a part of. So couldn't be more excited about that. Okay, so enough of me. now we want to dive into what you need. What would you like from us? What are you hoping to get from us in terms of programming? As you saw those different elements that were hopefully the kind of what we just presented will get the juices flowing. We are going to break into 4 groups right now, moderated by Michael, Jose, Sarah, and myself. And this will be an opportunity to have a chat about what you need and what would be helpful to you from the Passive House Accelerator. Michael, if you wouldn't mind coming on camera and sharing a highlight or two.
Yeah, it was first of all, a great room, and a bunch of different things came up. I feel like whether it was just a teaser or not, Zach, sorry, the community came up quite a bit, and a few interesting ideas or things that people felt like they could use. One is a bit of an opportunity board or a job board where people can make connections. We had a CPhD/engineer on, and finding opportunities to collaborate with people. That was one. Number two, someone brought up the fact that they're doing some work in some schools right now, and would be great to talk to someone else or a group of individuals who are also doing schools and learn from them. So you could really kind of not have to relearn that from scratch, which again is exactly kind of what that whole site will be about, which is pretty exciting. And then a bunch of stuff came up for either construction tech or one of the others, which is really doing a deep dive into domestic hot water. And I know we've done that once before, but I think doing an update, which I think would be really helpful, because there's a lot of new product out there where yeah, everything from the unit that's specifying to the pipings to some tricks and so forth, and looking at it from the single family perspective as well as from the multifamily perspective, just to kind of see, because there are some cross learning. The idea of really diving in, which I know everybody's seen this in the chat too, so a bunch of it, diving a little bit further into the performance, not just the health, which is I think important too, but the performance level of how does spray foam really perform versus some of the other products, you know, especially the dense pack. Does it really still work well with the blower door? We've got a bunch of people who are in communities where spray foam is still so prevalent. So, and of course, kind of giving people the resources in terms of the health risks and factors. And then the last thing I'll talk about, which was actually there's 2 things, but I'll be fast. One was really getting into the geographic locations of the projects and how it would change the wall sections. You know, if I'm doing something down south versus up north, what's my wall makeup look like? And a couple of different type of wall types. You know, what does my overhang look like? And then another person brought up the windows specifically. How are people really waterproofing those? What are the differences? And really kind of diving in. That could be like a construction tech one, which I think would be a lot of fun. So anyway, a lot of good ideas. I wrote them all down because we all know I won't remember these by tomorrow. But yeah, it was a great group.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, my group was awesome. We talked a little bit just kind of more generally about value that Passive House Accelerator can bring. What are things that we might be, you know, not seeing as much of. And we talked a little bit about the fact that it's a little hard to pull some of the younger crowd in, and some of the either younger crowd or just newer to Passive House things. A lot of people don't even know what you're talking about, you know, when you bring up Passive House. And that alone is a little hard to you know, tackle and then kind of bring into the community. And maybe it's one of those things where we really do have cookies come to the Passive House side, you know. But we're talking a little bit about how we can engage those folks. And so whether or not it's Passive House Accelerator being able to kind of meet people where they're at and really come and talk to kind of localized groups and environments, whether that's company specific or what have you, to be able to really, you know, kind of see what they're doing and see how they're doing things, and being able to talk about the benefits of Passive House within that context. we talked a little bit about getting awareness out there in terms of social media a little bit more. It's kind of hard to break into the social media scene with building science stuff because everyone is about aesthetically pleasing things, and that can be the case, when the project is done. But let's get that out there a little bit more, and just demand and being able to have it kind of really just out there for people to grab the bull by the horns, so to speak. We talked about different ways that we can do some outreach with stakeholders. Maybe, they can help advocate and also build some community, maybe also with people who are at least a little bit involved in code writing and whatnot, and how we can just kind of pull those different communities that are basically in our same umbrella industry, how we can pull them in as well. And also not step on toes. There's a lot of resistance. I'm sure everybody here knows someone that is very much on that if it's not broken, don't fix it wave, and how we can kind of penetrate that and pop that bubble a little bit there, and really just making it accessible to folks. Yeah, I'll hand the talking stick over back to you.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome. And definitely need to get our hands on those notes. That's awesome. Jose, you're up.
Hey, it's all right. Our group was great. I mean, we had a pretty interesting conversation about materials, code, and I mean, mainly how to bring in new materials, try to dispel some myths about how to use some products. We also discussed a little bit about the biogenic materials, and I guess ours turned more into a construction tech conversation than a 101 in terms of what my purview would be. But I think all of the topics and all of the conversation can turn into a 101 in terms of how to tackle your project versus code, in terms of, passive house and code, how they could integrate, how you could think about them. Sorry for the baby crying on the background, if you can hear that.
No, it's all good. We can't hear.
Okay, good. What else? Yeah, I mean, so basically, I think the ideas revolved around this, trying to go from the industry standard or the business as usual to use these new materials, try to implement them, somehow bring in other examples of where they've been used more often or that are become more prevalent, so that we can teach the people, I guess in this case, in our case, in the US, to be more open to these new materials that are probably more energy efficient, but also that could help to bring the building to a net zero approach, because they're going to have better materials, or they're going to be produced with more efficient sources of energy or zero carbon energy sources. So yeah, I mean, we basically discussed that, and then one project that one of the people we're working in, they are using aerated concrete on a full single-family home. I think it's upstate. I don't remember if you mentioned upstate or not, but seeing these materials that sometimes you have a hard time using in the city being used, and having, okay, now we can have a place that we can point contractors to or design teams to say, hey, this has been used here, and there's a precedent for it. Specifically in New York City, that was the context, so that, there's more, the market opens up. Kind of like what you mentioned, that the more solar there is, the less expensive it becomes. So the more the products get demand, then the better the price becomes. So
right,
yeah, that was the whole discussion. So I think I have a good amount of information to give you some pointers on what we could turn into a 101, and then we could reach out to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's we also have a bunch of co-hosts from construction tech here as well. So I think that it's really great to have the whole brain trust here, hearing these ideas directly, so that we can shape the programming moving forward. So thank you. I also we're running low on time, so I will be very brief. But we had a great group as well. We had a brand new community member, James, join us and dive in with both or jump in with both feet. and he is what he's looking for is more information about the sub communities kind of in building decarbonization and the stakeholders that are involved in this this broader community and how we can stitch that together. And then Jackson, who's been, I think, a Passive House Accelerator live attendee and community member for some time, said that he loves the weekly so much that he really doesn't want us to take 2 months off during the summer, which is fair. Our intrepid Kim Davis, our programs manager, has been out on maternity leave, so that's part of the reason for our break. But that was really great feedback. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and being part of the community. And we're really looking forward to this fall season, and we hope that you'll check out the Reimagine Buildings conferences that we have coming up, as well as the Reimagine Buildings Collective. More information about that soon, but that's going to be opening on October 1st. So, Michael, do you want to say any last words before we close up?
Only that this was perfect. This is exactly how we wanted this kickoff to go. I'm pretty happy that we got a bunch of people, and I'm happy that everybody chimed in as to what you want to see. I think it'll just make this year even better. And thanks.
Yeah,
cool.
Thank you.